went missing.
He told investigators he last saw her at the gift shop late Tuesday night while the ship was still near the Bahamas.
Sometime between 1 a.m. and 8 a.m., investigators say a female passenger in her 40s went missing.
It's unfortunate that he waited that long, but once he did inform us, we notified the Coast Guard.
In any investigation, the time is of the essence.
The search for answers and for the woman presses on.
Tonight, a mystery disappearance on a cruise ship reveals a tumultuous relationship filled with secrets. 47-year-old mother of two, Fariba Amani, disappeared overnight between the Bahamas and Florida while on a cruise with her boyfriend. Her family is scrambling for answers.
It's been a nightmare. It's been very emotionally disturbing. The questions that we have, we're not getting answers to.
Here's what we know tonight. Fariba, last seen at 1 a.m. at the cruise ship gift shop on February 29th. Her boyfriend of 8 months, Ramiz Golshani, says he left her to go to the casino and then went to bed alone. And when he woke up, she was nowhere to be found. Cops question Golshani, but say he is not a suspect. However, the family isn't buying it.
I don't think it was accidental. She didn't drink. She couldn't have just stumbled and fallen off board.
Fariba's sister says that the couple, well, they were on the rocks, according to her, and that the missing woman thought Golshani was cheating on her, even though the couple had dated for 8 months. Her sister also says the family of the missing woman had never met him, and they claim he has not reached out to the family since Fariba went missing. So what do you think happened? We're going to talk to an attorney in a very similar case. Call me, 1-877-JVM says, 1-877-586-7297. Straight out to HLN law enforcement analyst Mike Brooks. Mike, what are you hearing tonight?
Well, you know, initially they said that the FBI didn't think there was any foul play, Jane, but is there now? Well, you know, she lives in Canada. It's happened somewhere in the high seas, could be somewhere between 900 miles from where they left and where they docked. Now, there's no evidence so far that there was anything on any surveillance videos. When you get onto one of those ships, you're given basically a pass, almost like an ID. It doesn't show her accessing any kind of doors, you know, leaving the ship after it docked, that maybe she could have gotten off before he got up. Nothing at all like that. It just basically looks like a high seas mystery that we've seen too many of, Jane.
Well, I got to tell you, speaking of too many of, Mike Brooks, you'll remember this case. This reminds me of that other famous case from a few years ago, George Smith. You probably remember this. George and his fiancée took a Mediterranean cruise for their honeymoon. What a handsome couple. However, one boozy night, after a lot of drinking, George simply disappeared, leaving behind only a blood stain on the canopy. His family is still waiting for closure.
We have no closure about my brother's death because we have no answers. George hasn't surfaced, so we have no body to bury, and we have no grave to pray at.
Cops were never able to find out exactly what happened and whether it was an accident or murder, even though 4 men who reportedly helped a very intoxicated George back to his hotel room were questioned. So I want to go out now to the attorney for the family that is still fretting over this unsolved case. Brett Rivkin, thank you for joining us tonight. I've got to ask, are cruise ships just, you might say, the perfect crime scene?
Well, you know, that's scary to hear that, and we're hearing that more and more. And, you know, with the millions of passengers that go on cruise ships each year, to hear people refer to as a perfect place to commit a crime is scary, but many people think so. And you don't see many crimes getting solved on cruise ships. You hear very few successful prosecutions against anyone. Yet we do know that there's a lot of criminal activity occurring on cruise ships. I've been doing this kind of work for 30 years here in Miami. And there's been an increasing number of crimes as these ships have grown over the years, yet you see very few successful prosecutions.
Well, when George Smith went missing while the cruise ship was out to sea, that was in the Mediterranean, if I remember correctly. There was a lot of confusion, international waters, and so there was a question about who should handle this case. I want to go to Wendy Murphy, former prosecutor and law professor. In this case, we are talking about an area between the Bahamas and Florida. 10,000 1,000 square miles is what the Coast Guard and other authorities have been combing to try to find any just clue or hint of this missing woman, and they have not found a single thing. Again, you can't put crime scene tape up in the water. It's a perfect place to hide evidence. It's a place where evidence sinks and is often never seen again, Wendy.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good way to think about it. There is no way to put up crime scene tape, Jane. And, yet there is the possibility that a piece of her clothing or something could float up. So I hope they will continue to look for artifacts like that. The problem is, even if they find something like a missing piece of clothing, there's still the question, how did she get there? And, without a confession or a videotape, these crimes are so difficult to solve. I do wonder why, with so many people disappearing on cruise ships in increasing numbers, why they don't have more videotapes at every edge of these ships where you couldn't secretly dump a body in this ocean. I do think cruise ships can and should be doing more. They are often safe. There's no question about it. But being the perfect crime scene, I think, is an understatement, given that, there is no way to get forensics in a case like this.
Well, the other thing is this woman was not a drinker. Most of the time when there was a question about, well, the person went overboard, usually they're intoxicated. If Fariba wasn't drinking, you got to wonder, how did she disappear, presumably off the side? Now, she did board at the last port. We know that. So that means she had to have gone overboard either by accident or on purpose. Now, take a look. We're going to show you video of the actual railing on this particular cruise ship from which she disappeared. That railing, there it is, right there. And that's the railing on one part of it. If you're in your room, I remember from cruise ships, the railing is a lot sturdier. But it's a tall railing. Mike Brooks, how would somebody just go over that railing if they were sober, if they weren't drinking?
Well, there have been reenactments of cases that have happened on ships. The one where they never found the man on the honeymoon. Could it happen? Absolutely. Now, her relatives say she doesn't drink. What do we know what was going on in this particular case? We don't know. One of the things investigators will have to do, go back to their account, because usually it's not pay as you go. You usually put it on your room. So how much alcohol was on that particular room? What other expenditures were there on board that they use with their little swipe card? These are all things that the FBI, working in conjunction with the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, hopefully are looking into. In this particular case, I'm sure they are.
All right, let's go out to the phone lines. Whitney, Tennessee, your question or thought, Whitney?
Yes, Jane. I feel like that these cruise ship tragedies are happening way too often. Like once every couple of weeks you hear something like this happening. I understand the woman wasn't drinking. Have they questioned the husband in what has happened yet?
Well, I don't know if we have Michelle Sagona, investigative reporter. I know she's been looking into it. Michelle Sagona, what do you know about whether this boyfriend has been questioned? I would presume that that's the first thing that they would do is question him, since he reported her missing.
Absolutely, of course, Jane. As soon as the FBI determined that this was, in fact, their case, because there's a number of things that they take into consideration in determining if they are going to take it over and to move forward, then they can move forward with the investigative type things, as in questioning every single person that was on board, questioning the boyfriend, questioning all family members prior to her even leaving and going out there and to see what can happen. Another thing, earlier this evening when I was talking to the FBI, something that was interesting to me was that between 2002 to 2007, there were 258 cases of crimes on the high seas. 184 of those dealt specifically with cruise ships. And the most common reported on cruise ships, the most common crime is actually sexual assault. And out of those years, James, 5% of those cases were missing persons, and about 4 of them only represented foul play. So there's really been a lot of research done into this as far as cruise lines and missing persons and cases along this way. And
well,
so they
let me tell you this, Michelle Sagona.
I have spoken to 3 different investigators from the FBI.
What I'm going to tell you on the other side of the break is that the family of this missing woman has some suspicions. We're going to talk about their suspicions, what's behind it, and also what this boyfriend has to say. Again, he is not considered a suspect, but the family has a lot of questions and says that she had suspected he was cheating on her. We're taking your calls, 1-877-JBM's her boyfriend, her family desperate for answers.
It's been a nightmare. It's been very emotionally disturbing. The questions that we have, we're not getting answers to. You know, everything that she can't do, we want to do for her right now, because we know if the tables were turned, she would do exactly that for us.
47-year-old Fariba Amani missing on the high seas. Last seen, according to her boyfriend, 1 a.m. at the gift shop on the cruise ship. He didn't report her missing, however, until the next morning after the cruise ship had docked. So given the distance traveled over that time, the Coast Guard had to search 10,000 square miles between the Bahamas and Florida.
When there's a large area to cover, of course, it makes it more difficult to determine exactly where in that search area something may be.
Meanwhile, her family is saying that she had suspected her boyfriend was cheating, that she even consulted a private eye, although she never hired him, and that this was to be the make-or-break trip. If it didn't go well, she would break up, and now she is missing. Mike Brooks, your thoughts?
Well, I tell you, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of evidence. That's one of the problems. And, you know, when they arrived in Riviera Beach, they called the FBI. FBI called the Coast Guard. They started an air search, a sea search. Nothing whatsoever. But one of the other things they'll try to do is, was there anybody's pictures? Try to find out maybe people who were in adjacent rooms. Did they hear any fighting during the course of the trip? Was there anything at all like that that said there was any volatility in a relationship there on the ship? These are all things that I mean, these are questions I'd want to know as an investigator, Jane.
Sure. And again, this boyfriend is not a suspect. And even though Ramiz Golshani isn't talking, reportedly, to his missing girlfriend's family, he did talk to the Vancouver Sun, saying, quote, "You don't know what happened to me over the last week. I haven't slept for 10 hours in 1 week. Last week at this time, we were sitting and watching a comedy show on the ship. 2 hours after this, she was missing. I am missing a loved one. Both families love her. We want her safe back home right now." We reached out to this boyfriend and have not heard back. He's invited on our show any time at all. Out to the phone lines. Waddell, North Carolina. Your question or thought, Waddell?
Yes, my condolences go out to the family of the missing young lady. And second of all, I'd like to share that I have gone through a very tragic experience on a cruise ship, and I think they need to really take a close look at the staff.
What happened to you briefly?
They had free reign all over that ship. And also, I want people to know that they're on international foreign soil when they get on the cruise ship. And I also want people to be aware that when they're on that cruise ship, down the stairways and the little tunnels and all, that those are places that people need to always be accompanied by somebody. Because when it's time
sir, you make some very, very good points. And I want to go back out to Brett Rivkin, who represented the family of George Smith, who vanished from his honeymoon cruise in 2005, still an unsolved case. Brett, he's making good points. The cruise ship staff, etc.
They're excellent points. And, you know, this all goes back to your first question, is this a perfect place to commit a crime? And you got to wonder, how can somebody just vanish from a cruise ship without a trace? And the families get no answers. There should be surveillance cameras. There should be more of a police force on board there. And you got to take into consideration, and this gentleman's exactly right. And that's where we were talking earlier about the number of sexual assaults that happen on cruise ships. There are thousands of crew members from different places all over the world.
The boyfriend, we reached his home, not ready to comment yet.